stand here?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, let's go.
Mr.
What the hell is that?
Secretary.
Are you a court reporter?
Standing
Is he a court reporter? What's wrong with you? All right, what's up?
Mr. Secretary, is it your assessment that Russia does not really want peace?
Well, we can only go by what we see. I mean, I think they've stated clearly what they want is they want the rest of Donetsk, and obviously the Ukrainians aren't going to agree to that. So what we see now is they continue long-range strikes into Ukraine, obviously to degrade their electrical grid and try to demoralize the country or what have you. And they've made some gains in Donetsk, and they're losing 7,000 soldiers a week, 7,000 dead soldiers a week from Russia's side. So as of now, I mean, that's the assessment we have to make. They've made a demand that Ukraine can't agree to, and so we're sort of where we are at this point.
You didn't have any deliverables to bring from Washington on the Ukraine issue, is that correct, or did you?
Well, I mean, the president's done the sanctions, which is what they asked him to do, so that happened very recently. But as far as deliverables, we continue to do what we've been doing, plus we know the new sanctions.
Mr. Secretary, I was told by the European representative on foreign policy, Callas, that it was discussed, the Venezuela military operations were discussed.
Not with me.
European.
No one raised it. I mean, no one in the meeting raised it.
It was raised in meetings.
Not with me. They didn't raise it with me. They may have raised it among themselves, but they all came now from CELAC or whatever they were at. But it didn't come up once in any of the gatherings that we had, either last night or today.
Let me ask you about that. She told me that they discussed the legality and that there are two reasons why an operation would be legal: self-defense and a UN resolution. That neither of those applied in this case, that they are all struggling with the drug issue, and that they should discuss whether international law needs to be updated. So let me ask you about that.
I don't think that the European Union gets to determine what international law is. No, they certainly don't get to determine is how the United States defends its national security. The United States is under attack from organized criminal narco-terrorists in our hemisphere, and the president is responding in the defense of our country. I do find it interesting that all these countries want us to send, and supply, for example, nuclear-capable Tomahawk missiles to defend Europe. But when the United States positions aircraft carriers in our hemisphere where we live, somehow that's a problem. So I would say that the United States is, and this president has made very clear, his job is to protect the United States from threats against the United States, and that is what he's doing in this operation.
And Canada's foreign minister says that they have been assured that the U.S. is using its own intelligence and that the Canadian intelligence is not being used. We've been told, or there are reports rather, that the UK is not sharing targeting intelligence.
Yeah, a couple points. The United States, there's reasons why we have those assets in the region, and that is to collect intelligence, and we're actioning on that. Obviously, I won't go any deeper when it comes to intelligence matters. I did see a CNN report yesterday. I'm not going to go into great detail and to say that it's a false story. It's a fake story. And what's happening now is people with a business card that has a government email on it become sources because they don't know, they're not even in the know. So they either have an agenda or they want to make themselves important. And it's been a plague of story after story that's either inaccurate or misleading, and that falls in the category of both. That story does. But again, going back, look, this is a counter-drug operation. The president's ordered it in defense of our country. It continues. It's ongoing. It can stop tomorrow if they stop sending drug boats. The Maduro regime is a narco-terrorist regime indicted in the Southern District of the United States for narco-terrorism. But more importantly, they're also a transshipment organization that allows these groups to operate from their national territory. They allow drugs to be shipped. They openly cooperate with the shipping of these drugs towards the United States and Europe, by the way, so maybe they should be thanking us. But the bottom line here is that the president is going to defend the national interest and the national security of the United States, which is under threat by these terrorist organizations.
Secretary, you met with your Saudi counterpart today. Can you talk about what is being discussed in preparation for MBS visit to the White House next week, and will the Saudis get a security deal that is better than the deal that Qatar previously got?
Well, we're still working through all that. I mean, obviously, all that will be announced just prior to or during the visit, but we'll have some good agreements to sign with them. A lot of progress has been made since the president's visit there. So we're working through that. I feel good about where it's at. There's still a few things that need to be tightened up and finalized, and we're going to have a good meeting next week.
Mr. Secretary, I'd like to go to another region.
Which one?
For that, Sudan.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible.
Exactly, and I saw the communique that the G7 put out today. I mean, what is your take? Is there
Yeah.
anything that can be done right now? Because
Unlike the
situation-
Caribbean, which anybody who told you that was discussed is not being honest with you. Not a single person brought it up in any of those, and we had 3 meetings with the whole group of 4. That was discussed. And we're very concerned. As you know, we've been sponsoring this Quad initiative along with Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. And I think the fundamental problem we have is that the RSF agrees to things and then never follows through with it. So now what you have is a calamity on your hands. And so I had meetings on this yesterday. We've discussed it multiple times with multiple countries today. And I think something needs to be done to cut off the weapons and the support that the RSF is getting as they continue with their advances. I think it's telling, the humanitarian groups are telling us that some of the levels of malnutrition and suffering that they're seeing from some of these people who have been able to flee is unprecedented. They've recorded things they've never recorded before. And I think even more troubling is that they didn't have the number of refugees they expected to receive because they assume many of them are either dead or so sick and malnourished they can't move anymore. So what's happening there is horrifying. We have worked, I think, all the way back to July and August on this Quad because there are countries involved in helping these elements on the ground fighting. And we share many of the same concerns that others do about how that could turn into a nest for jihadist and terrorist activity. But the solution to it is not to fight a war where civilians literally are being targeted for rape, sexual violence, and murder. And that's what's happening.
But the
What's
UAE,
your assessment on the
is
UAE's role
still
in this
supplying
conflict?
them with drones, Chinese drones.
Yeah, so we're working hard at it. We know who the parties are that are involved. These things, that's why they're part of the Quad, along with other countries involved. And so I can just tell you at the highest levels of our government, that case is being made and that pressure is being applied to the relevant parties. I don't want to get into calling anybody out in a press conference today because what we want is a good outcome here. This needs to stop. I mean, they're clearly receiving assistance from outside that's allowing them. And clearly that assistance isn't just coming from some country that's paying for it. It's also coming from countries that are allowing their territory to be used to ship it and transport it. So that, in order for this to be solved, that needs to be addressed. I don't know if you saw the RSF a few days ago agreed to humanitarian ceasefire, but they don't intend to comply with it. And when you raise the issue of these atrocities, they always hide behind the argument that this is rogue elements. Well, it's not rogue elements. They're doing it systematically, and it's something that we have taken very seriously and are doing everything we can to bring the relevant countries to the table to stop it. It needs to end.
Would you support the Senate push, bipartisan Senate push, to label the RSF either a foreign terrorist organization or STGG?
Yeah, I mean, if it would be helpful in bringing this to an end, we would. I haven't seen that proposal. I know some senators discussed it with me months ago, but in the end, we just want this needs to stop. And I think, unfortunately, what's happening here is the RSF has concluded that they're winning, and they want to keep going. And by going, they're not just fighting a war, which war alone is bad enough. They're committing acts of sexual violence and atrocities, just horrifying atrocities against women, children, innocent civilians, of the most horrific kind. And it needs to end immediately. And we're going to do everything we can to bring it to an end. And we've encouraged partner nations to join us in this fight. And we're not going to let the Quad process that we've set up be a shield that people hide behind and say, well, we're involved with the Quad, we're trying to solve it. We need actionable results, and they need to happen very quickly. Otherwise, what's already a travesty is going to get far worse.
Can I ask you more specifically about your assessment of the scale of the atrocities? I mean, we heard these reports recently of 460 patients in a hospital, civilians being killed by the RSF.
Yeah, those are the ones that can get out.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have an assessment of the scale overall of what's been committed in Al-Qaeda?
Well, I don't know about numbers. I can tell you that the one thing that I think was most shocking to us is that they anticipated receiving thousands of refugees, and they didn't. So obviously these aren't people that are happy living there after a year of siege against the city. There's a reason why they didn't come out. And we fear that the reason why they didn't come out is because they're dead, or because they're so sick and so famished that they can't move. So I think it's even worse. Not that refugee flows and crisis is a positive thing, but when the refugees don't come, and they would otherwise, you have these suspicions that they're either dead or unable or about to die, and that is just what really is weighing on us right now.
Secretary, back to Ukraine. Several allies here announced energy, support, fundings and other ways of support to help Ukraine stabilize energy grids. Was there any specific U.S. commitment?
Well, we've had those conversations with the Ukrainians about what they need, and I know that's ongoing. And clearly helping them survive the winter is important just on a humanitarian ground. The challenge is that Ukraine's energy grid has been diminished each year. So each year they start at a lower baseline than the year before. Now I think in Kyiv, for example, upwards of 50 to 60% of the day is spent without electrical power. And they've done a tremendous job of sort of rerouting their grid and trying to work around it. But that also means there are hours of the day where you can't, there's no water, there's no electricity. You have to schedule business and life activities around that. And that's clearly part of Russia's strategy, is to try to collapse morale within Ukraine and the will to fight. So, you know, that's why we've been in discussions with them about defensive weapons to be able to protect their grid. And I know we've been in ongoing technical conversations about the specific equipment they need. But ultimately, if that equipment is ultimately destroyed a week later after it's installed, that remains a problem. And that's been the history of the last 2 or 3 years.
Can I go back to try to take another stab at the Venezuela intel thing? And I'll try to keep this from being a hypothetical. Do you think that the United States, needs anyone else's help on intel to continue to do what you're doing?
Well, I'll say this to you. Again, when I talk about intel matters, I just don't comment on them broadly. Suffice it to say that there's a reason why we have assets in the region. Those assets do, among other things, collect intelligence. We're very confident in the intelligence we have, and nothing has happened. Nothing has happened in this entire process that has impeded our ability to identify drug boats and strike them.
Without getting into details on the you mentioned that.
Without getting into details, you'd like details. Okay, go ahead.
You mentioned the story the other day is fake news.
It's fake news. So.
Has there been no change then in UK sharing of intelligence?
We have very strong partnerships with the UK and other countries. Again, nothing has changed or happened that has impeded in any way our ability to do what we're doing, nor are we asking anyone to help us with what we're doing in any realm, and that includes military.
Has the
Do you think
UK
the
expressed
Coast Guard-
concern over U.S. strikes in the Caribbean?
Is what now?
Has the UK expressed concern to the U.S. over
I've
strikes?
not discussed that with them. They've not discussed it with me. Maybe they've expressed it to the media, but they haven't with me directly. You know, I think other ones are aware of what's happening, but I don't think no one's raised it with me directly. Certainly didn't raise it today. It didn't come up one time.
Mr. Secretary, is the Coast Guard doing effective work in the Pacific?
Sure. I mean,
On drug
interdictions continue. The problem is interdictions alone are not effective. You have to incentivize this industry that these terrorists are using to flood our country with heroin, with cocaine, with fentanyl, and by the way, destabilize the Caribbean in the process. Interdictions have limited to no deterrent effect. These drug organizations, they've already baked in the fact they may lose 5% of their drug shipments. It doesn't stop them from continuing to do it. What you have seen is an impact on drug boats. You have seen much less of them. You're starting to see it. It's in both the Pacific and in the Caribbean basin, especially in the Caribbean.
Any response to Venezuela's government saying that it's doing a massive military mobilization in response to what they call a threat from the United States?
Yeah, they don't have a government. There's an illegitimate regime that's basically a narco-trafficking organization that's empowered itself. By the way, many of the countries represented here at the G7 don't recognize the Maduro regime as a legitimate government. So I don't generally respond to what they're saying. Suffice it to say that you know, the problem we have is that the senior leader of that regime, of that illegitimate regime, is also indicted in the United States in the Southern District of New York on drug charges. And unfortunately, the Biden administration, you know, both of his nephews were convicted of drug trafficking in the United States, and they were sitting in jail serving their federal sentences when the Biden administration pardoned them and released them, along with Maduro's bagman, Alex Saab, who was also in U.S. custody awaiting trial, released them as well on a promise that he would hold free and fair elections. So the Biden administration got snookered. And they've snookered other people. They've snookered the Vatican. The Maduro regime has fooled other entities, the Norwegians who have tried to get involved and broker deals with them. But look, this is a counter-drug operation, and if they stop sending drug boats, there won't be any problem.
Manuel Noriega was also an indicted drug trafficker whom the United States considered an illegitimate leader, and we went in and arrested him. Is that something that you're talking about?
Yeah, I was in high school when that happened, so I wasn't involved in that operation. I'm telling you I can only comment on what we're facing now, and that is what the president has authorized is an operation to stop these terrorist organizations from flooding our country with drugs. And that's what we're in the process of carrying out. That's what he's authorized. That's what the military is doing. That's why our assets are there.
Can I ask briefly on the Middle
Mr.
East?
Secretary, don't you need to do it on land also? There's suggestion that most of the fentanyl, at least, is coming over
Sure,
land.
and we have excellent cooperation with the Mexicans. And the Mexicans are doing more today than they've ever done to stop it. Also, as part of the president's agreement with President Xi of China, they've agreed to schedule, I think the FBI director, if not today, was going to have or did have a press conference announcing that. But as part of the arrangement and the agreement that was made in South Korea 2 weeks ago. The Chinese have agreed to schedule 13 key precursors. So for the first time, if they can cut back on that being shipped to Mexico, that will certainly have an impact on the manufacturing of fentanyl inside of Mexico. And Mexican authorities are doing more today than they ever have, and we're working closer with Mexican authorities than we ever have that I can recall, perhaps ever for certain, in stopping this flow. So we have a strong cooperation with Mexico, with El Salvador, with Ecuador, with Guatemala, with multiple countries in the hemisphere that are helping us on land stop these flows from getting here. That's the difference between them and the drug boats. With the drug boats, we have no cooperation. On the contrary, the Venezuelan regime has long facilitated the use of Venezuelan territory as a transshipment point for drugs.
Secretary, you met with your Indian counterpart here as well. India has declared that the explosion in Delhi on Monday was a terrorist incident. How concerned are you about rising tensions between India and Pakistan, given the antecedent of the tension and the fighting?
Yeah, I mean, we're aware. We're aware of the potential that holds. But I think the Indians need to be commended. They've been very measured and cautious and very professional in how they're carrying out this investigation. That investigation continues. It clearly was a terrorist attack, and it was a car loaded with highly explosive